Hey everybody, what's up? It's Anthony with Average Planeswalker, and I'm on Arena today. And I wanted to go through um, a deck I made, which uh, I'm a heavy control player, so I really wanted to play, of course, control. I played in EDH, I played in Modern, I played in Standard, and I put together a 5 color control deck. So with this deck, um, it is what it is. It's 5 color control. So I wanted to go ahead and go through the deck, the ins and outs of it. Last night I went 5-1 in a traditional constructed. Where are we at? Traditional constructed, right here. So I went 5-1 in this format here last night with it. So I went up against Teamer Aggro, 2 Simic Aggro decks, 1 Blue-White Control, and 1 Esper Control. And the only one I lost to was Teamer Aggro. And that was mostly based off of not being able to get my board wipe. You know, it wasn't like I got mana screwed or anything, which happens a lot, honestly. But in this aspect, it was a good loss. I just could not get a board wipe. You know, it happens. So in a loss like that, I don't mind, because that's just random card, I guess. But when you get mana screwed, it's completely different. Anyway, so let's go ahead and wrong thing. I meant to hit decks. But anyway, that's my stuff there, my profile, in case anybody wants to play or anything. But right now we have 5 color control, which we're going to go over. Last season we were looking at blue-white control. I built a mono red. I don't like mono red at all. I really don't, especially in paper. I only built it in Arena for the simple fact that when you're playing as a control player on Arena, if you're winning, the other player will leave. They will leave the game, and then you have to sit there throughout their 1, 2, 3, or 4 timeouts, and there's not really much you can do about it, and that kind of gets irritating. So I ended up building mono red just to get some games in, kind of climb ranked. But as you can see, I'm a pretty hardcore control player with Jeskai control, 4 color control with last season and everything. So this season we went into 5 color control, and this is the deck that I went 5-1 with. So let's go ahead and open that up. Take a look at what we got here. Let's see. There we go. Okay. So 5 color control. You're going to see immediately off the bat that we're going to be having green in here for Wilderness Reclamation. Wilderness Reclamation is a busted enchantment, and it's in Standard. So I'm not seeing too many people play this card. I haven't seen anybody play it. I'm not saying I'm the first to play it or anything. It's known to be a busted card. It is, but you just kind of got to find the right thing for it. And I really think control, like even if you wanted to break this down just to Bant control, would just benefit off this tremendously. And a lot of people are, especially locally, are talking about it. It's possibly getting banned because of how good it can be. But I don't think it will get banned. I honestly don't even see this ending up in a Standard meta. I really don't. For as good as it is, and it's an uncommon. It's an uncommon. That's what's pretty crazy about it. EDH, this is perfect for EDH. This is going to be great for EDH. So let's go ahead and go through the deck here. I don't know if we want to go the vertical view or if we want to go side view here. I wish we could really kind of move this up so we could see the entire deck. If someone knows how to do that, that'd be great. Let me know. But anyway, let's go ahead and go through the main board. So on the main board we are running 2 Syncopate. Now I know that Allegiance just came out with Quench, and a lot of people are playing Quench like crazy. Now don't get me wrong, Mana Leak is an amazing card in Modern, but that's 3 mana, and 1 mana does make a huge difference. In my opinion, Quench and Syncopate are the same, but they're different. They're the same that they're amazing early game counter, and both bad late game counter, for the fact that you have to sink so much into the X cost for Syncopate that it's almost not worth it. And then with Quench, they'll have so much mana that the 2 doesn't really mean anything. So, in my experience, For me and what I'm trying to do with the meta, Syncopate by far blows Quench out of the water in my opinion, for the fact that it exiles. So if you're going against Arclight, they're not bringing that back. Rekindling Phoenix, they're not bringing it back. Carnage Tyrant, they're not bringing it back. Any Planeswalkers, they're not bringing it back. Nexus of Fate, to my knowledge, is the only thing that can ruin a Nexus of Fate, is Syncopate. I would rather Syncopate a Nexus of Fate than Quench it. So, for those reasons, I prefer to play the Syncopate, only a 2 of, in the main board, in the deck. We are also running 3 Revitalize. Now, we are in a mid-range aggro-heavy meta. There are control decks out there, believe me, I know there are, and control is going to be a much more relevant archetype, but Revitalize is just so good. There's talk about, let's see if we can bring up the other new card that came out with Allegiance. It's a instant Sphinx's Foresight, I believe. Insight, excuse me. This right here. Sphinx's Insight, draw 2 cards, for 1 blue, 1 white, 2 colorless, instant speed. Addendum, if you cast a spell during your main phase, you gain 2 life. So I like this card for limited. It's a great, amazing card for limited, though I just think that Revitalize is so much better. It's better curved and everything. And there's no downside for playing it at instant speed. You gain 1 more life, you draw 1 less card, though you still have 2 mana left open if you want to syncopate something else left. So that's the reason why I run Revitalize over Insight, and I run it as a 3 of. We're running 2 Essence Scatter because, again, we're in an aggro and mid-range heavy archetype, and Essence Scatter is just really good. I almost want to up it to 3, but then, that's why you got Syncopate, that's why you got Revitalize to gain some life back, and then other answers in the deck. So we're running your normal 2 Search for Escanta. That's just a staple in any control deck, period, throughout anything, even modern. So we are running 3 Sinister Sabotage. I still haven't decided if I want to run Sinister Sabotage or Absorb. Now, Absorb gains you that life, and again, we're in that meta with aggro and mid-range being a thing, but I think with Revitalize, we can get that. We don't have to put in 2 blue and a white to get the Absorb off. And in this deck, that doesn't honestly really matter all that much, but still, being able to fill your graveyard with Sabotage for your Escanta is very relevant. So I think we're going to stick with the Sabotage. We are running Chromatic Lantern. This is a 5-color deck, although Chromatic Lantern isn't 100% needed to make the deck work. I made this deck specifically so that it is Esper. It splashes the red and it splashes the green extremely lightly. Though I was running a 2 Chromatic Lantern, and I just wanted to up it to 3. That way I didn't have to worry about the mana issues. But with 2, it still ran fine. So Chromatic Lantern it does what it does. It's there for mana ramp and for fixing your mana base. We are running a 2 of Nicol Bolas. Here is the start of your red splash. Nicol Bolas is just too good not to play, if you can fit him in. And I feel like we can fit him in this deck. We have plenty of control and outs and ways to deal with the board state that we can fit him in. There are times where you have so much mana that, and we'll get to some reasons why you have so much mana. You have so much mana that you could play him and then flip him immediately. It's pretty ridiculous. So Nicol Bolas, just a game ender, really good, especially the discard aspect of it. So your typical board wipes to settle the wreckage are in the main board, and let me see. Okay, there we go. I had to scroll down. So we're running 2 Settle the Wreckage, and you can see the other 2 board wipes as well. Settle the Wreckage, you pretty much know what it is. The only downside to this now is not only do we have Shalai out there, but we do have Gruul Spellbreaker. And Gruul Spellbreaker can hinder our Settle the Wreckage. So we have an answer for that as well. If they get Rhythm of the Wild out and we cannot counter the Gruul Spellbreaker, we do have an option for it. But we are running the 2 Settle the Wreckage because Carney T is a thing. We are running 3 Chemistry Insights. Now, I kind of want to run the 4, but since we're running Revitalize, that kind of helps with our draw. I did try the Opt and realized I needed that life gain. So instead of Opt, we're running Revitalize with 3 Chemistry Insights, and with Jumpstart, it's kind of like running 6 Insights, which isn't bad. So we got 3 of those. We are running 2 Roscoe's Contempts. Normally I would run 3, though 2 has actually been pretty good. I've been questioning adding in the 3rd just to be more consistent in drawing it. Not necessarily that I need a 3rd one in the deck, more of just consistent draw to get it. That has been my concern about it. So we're going to go into our enchantment. Again, we discussed this at the beginning of the video. Wilderness Reclamation. At the beginning of your end step, untap all lands you control. Now, something that this is a control deck, so you already know there's Teferi in this deck. Those 2 stacked upon each other can get ridiculous because you can stack your untapped triggers. So if you have a Search for Iskanta out and it's flipped as your land as the Sunken Ruin, during your main phase you activate Sunken Ruin, grab the card you want, go to the end step, Wilderness Reclamation stacks, Teferi trigger stacks as long as you plus Teferi, and you have 2 of those stacks. You make sure you stop because in paper you just talk, right? So you stop it at the end of the turn, untap for Wilderness Reclamation, activate Iskanta again, and then your Teferi trigger happens to untap Iskanta. So you're getting 2 Iskanta triggers in 1 turn, and then you can still Iskanta at the end of their turn, or if you needed it, because you were able to untap with Reclamation and Teferi. That is extremely powerful, and it happens more often than you think. There aren't too many. I know we got Mortify in the format now, but there aren't too many enchantment removals in the format right now. A lot of people are running away from that because they don't see too many enchantment removals and there's too many other good cards to play, which is completely understandable. So Wilderness Reclamation in this deck is a big help to making the deck work. Now we go to our next board wipe, which is Kaya's Wrath. This, as you saw previously in my other decks, I was blue-white control, Jeskai control. Prior to that, I did 4-color control, which was Esper, Splash Red for Bolas. Now I'm back to Esper as the main core of this control deck, and Kaya's Wrath is just it's better than Cleansing Nova for the fact that it comes out on turn 4. So if they have Shalai, if they have Gruul Spellbreaker out, you have Kaya's Wrath to go ahead and still wipe the board. That is the best part about this, and it's turn 4, not turn 5. That becomes very relevant in this early aggro meta. Kaya's Wrath is just so good, so good. You don't really gain the life. We're not looking for the life game because we're not a creature heavy deck, we're a control deck. But to be able to board wipe on turn 4 when they have a way to stop our Settle the Wreckage is just it's backbreaking. So we're gonna go up here, and when I mentioned that we're gonna have the mana to play him and then flip him is because we run 2 Spell Swindles. Now, I have been told that this card is garbage, that it is utter garbage. I love this card so much, and prior to Guilds of Ravnica, I'm gonna say this is probably the best card that was printed, like instant speed spell, I should say. Excuse me, because Teferi's here. So Spell Swindle is your standard mana drain. In a sense, it costs 3 more mana, but it's a better mana drain in my opinion. Mana drain is 2 blue, counter target spell, and you get X colorless mana at the beginning of your next upkeep for whatever the converted mana cost of the spell you cast was. Now that's colorless mana. Spell Swindle says counter target spell, create X colorless treasure artifact tokens where X is that spell's converted mana cost, and they sack to add 1 mana of any color. This fulfills quite a bit. This fulfills that if you need an artifact for, let's say, if you're playing Tezzeret and you want to draw 2 off his plus ability, I believe it's a plus ability, or was it 0? I think it's plus. Anyway, if you want to draw 2, you have the artifacts to do that. If you're running Karn and you want to make a construct, you have the treasure tokens to do that. If you're not running any of that, you then now have the mana by turn 5. So for instance, let's say it's my turn 5, my opponent, I pass the turn, my opponent is a control deck, and it's their turn 5. They play Teferi. I Spell Swindle. I now am 5 turns ahead of them in mana. That is backbreaking. That is ridiculously good. At that point, I draw my card. I can play my Teferi, or I can just pass turn because I have every answer in the world and all the mana to do it with. So Spell Swindle is a game changer in a control deck, and I don't see anybody except one other person locally playing it, and I think it is amazing. So, yes, I am just so much about this card. It's a 2 of. Now, again, if you're going against like aggro, very fast decks, this comes out, and then you sideboard in other things. Of course, that's pretty it's pretty obvious. Though with everything else, mid late game, this game will just get you. This card will just get you way ahead. Okay, enough about Spell Swindle. Teferi. Not much else to say about it. You know what it is. Azor the Lawbringer. This is a 1 of. 2 Teferi, excuse me. I have the 3rd, but I like 2, so that's that. Azor the Lawbringer. 2 white, 2 blue, 2 colorless, a 6/6 legendary creature Sphinx with flying. When Azor the Lawbringer enters the battlefield, each opponent can't cast instant or sorcery spells during that player's next turn. Whenever Azor attacks, you may Sphinx Revelation. I'll just say that. You may Sphinx Revelation whenever he attacks. This card just, if you can make it to turn 6 against a mono red aggro deck, this card can win you the game. They have to waste 2 burn spells on it, and if that's the case, then that's 2 burn spells not going to your face. Along with Revitalize, you should be able to survive. But the thing is, when this enters the battlefield, they only have the rest of that turn to cast all their instants. Whether you're going against control, whether you're going against mono red, or you're going against mid-range, or any other type of aggro, for the remainder of the turn, that's the only time they can cast instants or sorceries on is that turn right there. Once it's their turn, they cannot. They could play an enchantment, they could play their planeswalker, they could drop their land, and they could play a creature. Did I miss anything? They could play an artifact. But that's it. Like, he is almost, aside from Chupacabra and a couple of sack outlets from creatures, he's pretty much protected. So this Azor just really changes the game and really puts you ahead life-wise. So it's a very, very good card. It's a 1 of. In my arena build, I only have 1 Nexus of Fate, so I'm only running the 1. But in paper, I run 2, so you could adjust accordingly. But Nexus of Fate, we don't need to talk about it. Everybody knows about it. It's just busted. The only thing that really gets rid of it is Syncopate. So there it is. You can go infinite turns with this deck once you dwindle down your deck enough. Mill, you cannot be milled. So it's amazing that a mill deck cannot mill you, because mill is a thing now in standard. It's definitely a thing. And Nexus of Fate says, I don't care about your mill. So that's always good. We're running 1 expansion Explosion. I did have this at 2. I'm still debating if I want to add the 2nd. But expansion is so good when you're in a counter war and you want to play your Teferi and they counter it and you negate and then they negate that. Well, I have expansion. I'll negate your negate with my expansion. If they have a Teferi out and they go ahead and Vraska's Contempt, well, I'm going to go ahead and Vraska's Contempt yours as well with expansion. The versatility with expansion is just extremely, extremely good. Explosion, it's pretty simple. You hit the face or kill a walker, kill a creature, and then you draw that many cards. So also a very good game ender as well. Let's see. So that's it for the main board, and then we go into the mana base, which the mana base, honestly, I'm still kind of working on. It seems like it's going pretty well with 3 plains, 3 islands, 3 swamp, 1 mountaina, 1 forest. I don't have all my land base in arena yet, but as of right now, what I'm doing is 2 glacial fortress, 1 hollowed fountain, 2 drowned catacomb, 1 grave, 1 steam vent, 1 sulfur falls. Let's see, 1 sacred foundry, 1 temple garden, hinterland harbor. I think in paper I'm gonna switch a temple garden to a breeding pool now that it's out. Running 2 field of ruin just in case we go against any Legion's Landing or the new Simic. Tap green, blue, and white. Target creature gains flying and +X, where X is the creature's power. I can't remember the name of it. But that's what we have Field of Ruin for, or for Ascantas. So it's still worth running Field of Ruins. Now, this right here is a huge, huge piece that needs to be in the deck. I used to run 2, but then that gave me 4 colorless lands to possibly draw into, and I didn't want that. A friend of mine convinced me to do just the 1 of. So, shout out to Robert for that. Appreciate it. He hates Reliquary Tower, but he convinced me to do just the 1. He also hates Spell Swindle, but still, card's amazing. Anyway, Reliquary Tower allows you to not have a maximum hand size, and when you're drawing so many cards off of either Azor the Sphinx or Explosion or you got your Teferi, and you have all these cards left in your hand, you don't want to be discarding because that's so much advantage for you. So Reliquary Tower really lets you keep all of those cards. So that is your main board. Now I've already built a sideboard, which I'm still kind of working on. There's a few changes I want to do here and there, but otherwise the sideboard is pretty solid. I do need to put Nezahal in here, but I'm trying out some other type of removal. So we got 2 Spell Pierce. This is for your control decks, and Simic decks as well, because some Simic decks are running a couple of Negates, a couple of Quench. So you want to be able to keep that one blue open and surprise them. Be like, Spell Pierce. And then be good to go. Disdainful Stroke is good against almost any deck, because almost any deck is going to have at least one 4-drop. And it's just really good to counter all of those. Negate is for, again, your control matchups or some of those Simic decks that have a couple of counter spells in them. Cast Down is more for your aggro, more creature-based decks. That way you have a couple more spot removal spells for them. And Cast Down is really good because if you can't hit, like, let's say Venifer, the new birthing pod from Allegiance, if you can't hit that, you have other ways to deal with that, with a board wipe or a Teferi bounce, or Vraska's Contempt. So you have other ways to deal with that, but a Doomblade effect-ish with Cast Down is just really good. Mortify, as much as I love Final Payment, we're not a creature-heavy deck. We don't want to be sacking our enchantment, which is Reclamation, and we don't want to be paying 5 life. As much as life is a resource to a control player, taking 5 to the dome against an aggro deck just to get rid of a creature just isn't worth it for us. So Mortify, it costs 1 more, but we also get the option of hitting those Search for Ascantas, hitting those Legion landings, and hitting any of those flip enchantment to lands. So Mortify really helps us in that aspect. After Mortify, we were running 1 Angel of Grace. Angel of Grace is busted good. It is extremely good. It's remnants of Angel's Grace for Modern, where you just don't lose that turn. So Flash Flying, it's a 3 colorless and 2 white 5/4 flying angel. Flash Flying, when Angel of Grace enters the battlefield until end of turn, damage that would reduce your life total to less than 1 reduces it to 1 instead. So for instance, simplest way I could put it, someone tries to Banefire you, you're at 18, and they try and Banefire you to 18 for exact damage. You flash this in, your life total becomes 1, and damage that reduces your life less than 1 reduces it to 1 instead. So you stay alive. You survive Banefire now. For instance, if they Banefire you for 19 and you're at 18, you still flash this in and you're still at 1. And then when the turn ends, it's your turn. You can swing with it and then activate its ability by tapping 4 and 2 white to exile this. Oh, it has to be exiled from your graveyard. I apologize. But it has another ability, 2 white, 4 colorless, exile Angel of Grace from your graveyard, your life total becomes 10. So if you have a way to either keep swinging with this until it goes back into your graveyard and then activate that, or if you happen to have Mortify or Cast Down in your hand, since you're bringing in sideboard pieces anyway, you can kill it yourself and then go ahead and gain that 10 life. Or if you have an Azor out, you can swing and just gain all that life. So there's a few possibilities to keep you alive. Running 2 Lyra Dawnbringers. I haven't decided if I wanted to just go drop it down to 1 Lyra, but Lyra Dawnbringer is just pivotal against any type of aggro deck, or mono red burn or Rakdos or anything. They have to use 2 burn spells essentially to kill Lyra, or 1 Fight with Fire. So in that type of trade-off, it's worth it. And if she stays on the board, you get to start gaining that life back. We're running 1 Ethereal Absolution. This is a 6-drop enchantment. Creatures you control get a +1/+1. Creatures your opponents control get a -1/-1. Tap 2 colorless, a white and a black. Exile target card from an opponent's graveyard. If it was a creature card, you create a 1/1 white and black spirit creature token with flying. This is in here just a 1/of against any Afterlife 1/1 flying tokens. So if they become 2/2s for some reason, they're 1/1s again. If they're 1/1s, they're dead. So it's just a 1/of just in case we get Thopters all over the place from Dovin Bond, or if we get, like I said, the Afterlife tokens, or even the 1/1 soldier tokens from Selesnya. this can just be a board wipe essentially and just kind of shut them down. It also helps that you can create your own blockers with this by exiling a target card, not a creature. So that's just amazing that you can exile target card from opponent's graveyard. Oh, excuse me, I apologize. It was a creature. If it was a creature, you create. So still being able to go ahead and do that and get a creature out of it is really beneficial. And then we have one Chromium for the control matchup, the mirror match or anything. Well, 5-color control isn't going to have a mirror match, I almost guarantee it. But this is up for control, so it can't be countered. And the fact that you can discard one card, this is why I chose Chromium over Nezahal. It can't be countered, such as Nezahal. This has Flash. And instead of having to discard 3 cards to exile Nezahal and bring them back, you just have to discard 1, and then Chromium becomes hexproof as a 1/1. It can still get board wiped, which Nezahal can be saved from a board wipe, but I just think Chromium can just win a game all on its own, and there's not really much way to deal with it. So, in the sense of what you discard compared to Nezahal is the reason why I picked Chromium in this sense. So, so that's a sideboard, and again, I'm tweaking it just a little bit more, but that is 5-color control for standard. So I'm going to be working on a teamer build. I got to get all the cards in Arena. I have the majority of them on paper, but it's going to be a while before I can build teamer aggro or mid-range. But that's the next deck I kind of want to build. So thank you for coming by. I appreciate it, and this is Anthony with the Average Planeswalker signing out. Y'all have a great Magic experience. Peace.